I tested which AI music generator is best. Suno versus Udio versus MusicGPT. Now, a year ago, AI generated music was a novelty. You would type in a prompt, get something that vaguely resembled a song, and that main reaction was curiosity rather than genuine usefulness. Now, the output was interesting in the way a magic trick is interesting. It's impressive for a moment, not something you'd actually use for anything. Now, that has significantly changed. The best AI music generators available right now produce output that is genuinely listenable. Full tracks with proper structure, instrumentations, vocals, and even production quality that in some cases is difficult to distinguish from independent music. Now, content creators are using these tools for background music, and small businesses are using them for promotional content. But the three main players in this space are, of course, Suno, Udio, and ChatGPT. Now, of course, these are meaningfully different from each other, and they approach music generation quite differently. They produce different styles of outputs, they have different strengths and weaknesses, and they are priced entirely differently. So, choosing the wrong one for your use case means either paying for capabilities you don't need or getting output that doesn't fit what you're trying to create. Now, I tested all three extensively with same prompts, same genres, and same use cases, and I'm going to break down exactly what I found. So let's get into it. Now, before we compare the tools, it is worth briefly explaining how these tools actually work, because understanding the underlying approach helps explain why they produce different results. Now, all three tools use a form of generative AI. Now, that has been trained on large datasets of existing music. The model learns the patterns, structures, and relationships within that music. So, you provide a text prompt describing what you actually want, a genre, a mood, a tempo, instruments, lyrical themes, and the model generates a track that fits that description. Now, the difference between the tools comes down to the size and composition of their training data and the architecture of their models and how they handle vocals and lyrics. The question of copyright and commercial licensing is also important for anyone using these tools for professional purposes. I will address the licensing situation for each tool specifically because using AI Gen is monetized content without the right license can create legal and platform compliance issues. Now, first of all, we have Suno. Suno is currently the most widely used AI music gen, and for good reason. It produces the most consistent polished outputs for all three tools I tested and full tracks with vocals, instrumentation, and production quality that is incredible. The interface is quite friendly and straightforward, and you enter a text prompt describing the music you want, and you can be as specific for any track. So you could pretty much go ahead and add a prompt like, upbeat indie pop song about starting over, female vocals, acoustic guitar, optimistic tone, and it produces the results exactly according to that. The vocal quality is absolutely amazing and it stands out on Suno from the competition. The AI gen voices sound natural enough that casual listeners don't immediately identify them as AI. Lyrics are coherent and thematically relevant to the prompt. Now, the custom mode in Suno also gives you more precise control instead of relying entirely on AI to generate lyrics. You can write your own lyrics and specify the strong structure easily. The free tier on Suno gives you 50 credits per day, with each generated track costing 5 to 10 credits depending on the length. You get 2,500 credits per month on the paid plans if you choose to go up. Now, where Suno falls short is in precise stylistic control, and if you want something very specific, a particular key, a particular chord progression, a very specific BPM, which is beats per minute, Suno's prompt-based interface doesn't give you that level of control. So that is about Suno. Let's talk about Udio. Now, Udio launched right after Suno and positioned itself as a tool for users who want more musical depth and stylistic sophistication. Now, whether it delivers on that positioning depends significantly on what you're generating. The first thing you notice with Udio is that the output has a different character than Suno. Where Suno tends towards polished, more radio friendly production across genres, Udio's output has more stylistic variations and it handles niche genres. Udio also handles instrumental tracks, music without vocals, and more naturally than Suno. So when you ask Suno for an instrumental, it tends to generate something that feels like a song with all the vocals removed. The interface is going to give you more musical parameters to work with that Suno doesn't give you. You can specify different tags, musical descriptors, and a whole lot more. Now, Udio's free tier is basically a pretty good one. You get 100 free credits per month rather than per day, which is significantly less generational volume. Now, the paid plan starts at $8 to $10 per month for 1,200 credits. Commercial licensing is included on the paid plan, quite similar to Suno. The weakness of Udio is, of course, relative to Suno and its vocal quality consistency. Suno produces more reliable, natural sounding vocals. Udio's vocals are excellent, but they will give you a little artificial sound. Moving on, we have MusicGPT. Now, MusicGPT is the newest and least established of the three. It occupies a different position in the market than Suno or Udio, and rather than competing directly on output quality alone, MusicGPT leans more into its conversational interface. You generate music through a back and forth dialogue with AI, refining and adjusting the output through natural convo. Now, the practical implication of this is that MusicGPT is more accessible for users who aren't sure how to describe what they want musically. So instead of needing to write a precise prompt up front, you can start with a vague description and refine it through conversation. Like you can go ahead and iterate it with make it more upbeat, add more bass, change the mood to something more melancholic, etc. The output quality of MusicGPT is competitive for straightforward genre requests like pop, rock, hip hop, but falls behind Suno and Udio on more complex or niche stylistic requests. MusicGPT's licensing model is also worth noting. The platform offers a clearer commercial licensing framework than the other two ghouls. Now, basically, the free tier on MusicGPT is going to go ahead and give you a limited number of generations per month, currently around 20, which is enough for evaluation but not regular use. So paid plans are competitively priced at $9.99 a month. Now, for pop and mainstream genres like pop, indie, country pop, mainstream pop, Suno is going to consistently produce the most polished radio ready output. The radio or the production quality is quite high and the vocals are natural. Udio is quite competitive but less consistent, and MusicGPT is going to handle these genres quite well but doesn't match Suno's production polish. For niche and genre bended styles like lo-fi, jazz, or even fusion, Udio is going to handle these requests more convincingly. The capability on Suno for this is, of course, much lesser, and MusicGPT doesn't dabble in it at all. For instrumental and cinematic music, like background scores, ambient music, etc., I would say Udio is the strongest. It has great instrumental output, and the capability is most reliable. Then, for custom lyrics and structured songs, I would say that Suno is the best and takes the winner there. Now, for commercial use and licensing, Suno requires a paid subscription for any commercial use. Udio has a similar commercial licensing term with a paid subscriber. MusicGPT has the most explicit and clearly written commercial licensing document of the three, which makes it easier to understand exactly what you're permitted to do with that music. So, the clearest recommendation on my end is if you need vocal forward music with polished production quality, Suno is the strongest tool for you. If you need instrumental or ambient music, Udio is the one for you. And if you're new to AI music and want the most accessible iterative experience, MusicGPT's conversational interface lowers the barrier to entry in a way that makes it worth trying first. So for most content creators and small business owners who need background music and occasional full tracks for video and promotional content, Suno is going to be the right starting point. Generate a few tracks on the free tier and see what it can do. The output quality relative to what music licensing used to cost in one of the most striking value propositions in the current AI tool landscape. So that is pretty much about it for this video. Thank you for watching till the end, and I'll see all of you next time. Have a great day. Goodbye.